In this chapter, we're going to begin to look at scripting a little bit, and we're only going to scratch the surface of scripting. We're really not going to get deep into it. That would be a more advanced class. So first of all, what is scripting? Well, it's simply putting a list of commands that PowerShell can walk through from start to end and do each command in it. You would use this for automating tasks. Let's say that the HR department is hiring about 10 new employees every week. They might send you a spreadsheet with the employees, their addresses, phone numbers, all the information you need about them that IT would need, and then IT in turn could write a script that would take that spreadsheet and create users in Active Directory for the organization. So that would be one kind of typical repetitive task. You know, why sit there and type in all those names, all the addresses, all the phone numbers, all that kind of information one at a time when it could be automated. Scripts can be written in Notepad. They can be written in PowerShell ISE. Let's take a look at the PowerShell ISE for a moment here. So I have a script, and when I run this script, it's just simply going to take the first line and do it, and then take the second line and do it, take the third line and do it, and so on. This could also be put directly into Notepad if I wanted to. Either way, I need to save it to a PS1 file. So I would go Save As. I'll just go to Desktop here, and I'll call this myscript.ps1. Now, in the case of Notepad here, it's going to try to attach text to it, .txt. So I'm going to change this to all files so that it won't do that. And if I just save that, then this thing's ready to run. Alright, back to our notes. There are additional tools. I want you to remember back a while ago when I said that PowerShell is not the console, and PowerShell is not ISE. PowerShell is the stuff that runs underneath it. That means that you can actually run it inside of other programs. They can be the window, the PowerShell window for you. And I've given you 3 common examples. PowerGUI, which is free. You can just go download it. Here's a picture of what that looks like. It looks very much like the ISE. PrimalScript, which is a very expensive program, but it does lots and lots of other things as well. PowerShell Plus, which is free. So these are just a few examples of some things that you can use. PowerShell scripts always end in ps.ps1. There are 2 prerequisites that I noted here that you have to have in order to run scripts, and we've covered these before. The first is that the execution policy has to be set to unrestricted or remote signed. And we have already done that, so I'm not going to demonstrate that here, but I did leave you an example of that. Second is you can't just call the script name itself. You have to give the entire path to it. Even if it's in the current path, you still have to give the entire path. That's just to make sure that bad guys can't set up scripts that you run unintentionally. You have to make an intentional effort in order to run that script. And so that's a safety feature that was built in. Here are a few good practices in writing scripts. Number 1, when you're writing scripts, use full parameter names. Don't use positional parameters and leave off the names or make partial names. Use the full parameter name. That makes it much easier to read later on. Don't leave out positional parameters. So just don't drop something just because it's a positional parameter and only give the value. Use full or absolute paths when referring to a location on a disk. Otherwise, if the person that runs that script doesn't happen to be parked in the same place, they're not in the same current present working directory, then that script will fail. So you want to give full paths, such as C users Roger or C users username or something, so that it knows exactly where to put stuff and where to get stuff. Breaking up long lines at pipes or other natural breaking points when possible. And if you look in your textbook in chapter 21, you'll see an example of that right at the beginning of the chapter on page 264. Use verb noun naming conventions for your scripts. In other words, when you're saving your script, in this case I didn't do that. Actually, in this case I should say I didn't do that. I did save as, and I just called it myscript.ps1. But really I should call this something like show my directory. And that way it looks like the convention of PowerShell commandlets. And so that's just a good recommended practice, just to keep things the same. All right, next we're going to talk about something called parameterizing.